The overhead lights in Mercy General's ER flickered as Dr. Marcus Webb pulled a bullet fragment from a gang member's shoulder, his hands steady, his face blank. Nobody in that sterile hallway knew the man in scrubs had once led a classified strike unit through war zones most governments denied existed. Before we dive in, if this story grabs you, stick around until the very end. Drop a like, leave a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. Now, let's begin. The gunshot victim on the gurney wouldn't stop screaming. Marcus Webb didn't flinch. He'd heard worse, much worse, in places where screaming meant you were still alive. Here in the emergency room of Mercy General Hospital, located in the sprawling chaos of Ridgewood City, the sounds were different, but the stakes felt just as real. He snapped on a fresh pair of gloves, his movements efficient, almost mechanical. "Get him to Trauma Bay 3, Marcus said to the nearest nurse, his voice low and even. She nodded and wheeled the patient away. Around him, the ER churned with the usual weekend bedlam. Drunks, overdoses, a kid with a broken arm from a skateboard stunt gone wrong. Marcus moved through it all like a ghost, present but apart. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional green that made healthy people look sick. Marcus had been working at Mercy General for 6 months now, and in that time he'd learned to read the rhythm of the place. Friday nights were always the worst. The city's violence spilled through those sliding doors like a flood, and the staff scrambled to plug the gaps. "Dr. Webb!" The voice came from behind him, sharp and clipped. Marcus turned to see Dr. Harold Vance, the hospital's chief of surgery, standing with his arms crossed. Vance was tall, silver-haired, the kind of man who wore his reputation like armor. He had the look of someone who'd spent more time in boardrooms than operating rooms lately, his scrubs too crisp, his shoes too clean. "A word." Marcus nodded and followed Vance into a side office, a cramped space cluttered with outdated medical journals and a dying ficus plant that nobody bothered to water. Vance shut the door and didn't sit. Neither did Marcus. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. "You've been here 6 months, Vance said, his tone somewhere between bored and irritated. "You keep your head down, you don't make waves, and your surgical outcomes are fine. But you're not a team player, Webb. You don't attend department meetings. You don't network. You don't schmooze donors at the fundraising galas. Frankly, I'm not sure why you're even here." Marcus met his gaze without expression. "I'm here to practice medicine." Vance's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "Medicine is a team effort. It's about collaboration, about building relationships with colleagues and the community. You treat this place like a pit stop. You show up, you do your work, you disappear. No one knows anything about you." "I do my job." "Barely." Vance leaned against the desk, his fingers drumming on the wood. "Look, I've got a hospital board breathing down my neck about efficiency metrics, about community visibility, about our public image. We need surgeons who can charm donors, who can glad hand at fundraisers, who can be the face of this institution. You? You're a ghost. You vanish the second your shift ends. Half the staff thinks you're unfriendly. The other half thinks you're just plain weird." Marcus said nothing. He'd learned a long time ago that silence made people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people said more than they should. It was a technique he'd picked up in interrogation training years ago, in a life that felt both distant and achingly close. Vance sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm putting you on probation. 3 months. Show me you can be part of this institution, attend meetings, participate in rounds, engage with the damn staff, or I'll recommend your contract isn't renewed. We've got a dozen qualified surgeons who'd kill for your position, and most of them have actual personality." "Understood." Marcus's voice didn't shift. He turned to leave. "Webb." Vance's voice stopped him at the door. "I don't know what your deal is. Maybe you're burned out. Maybe you've got some personal issues you're working through. But you're not special. You're replaceable. Every surgeon thinks they're indispensable until they're gone, and the hospital keeps running without them. Remember that." Marcus left without answering. Back in the ER, the chaos had only intensified. A woman in a stained bathrobe screamed at the triage desk about wait times, her voice shrill enough to cut through the ambient noise. 2 orderlies wrestled a combative psych patient into restraints, the man's eyes wild, his mouth foaming. Marcus grabbed a chart and scanned it, A kid with abdominal pain, probable appendicitis, vitals stable, but trending wrong. He walked toward the bay where the patient waited. "Hey, Dr. Webb." One of the younger nurses, Angela, caught his arm. She was new, maybe 3 months on the floor, still idealistic, still thought medicine was about saving the world instead of managing decline. "That guy you just patched up, the one with the gunshot wound, he's asking for you." Marcus frowned. "I'm not his attending." "I know, but he's insistent. Says he needs to talk to you, personally." Angela's brow furrowed. "It's kind of weird. He got real quiet when I said I'd get you." Marcus glanced at the board. He had 5 minutes before the appendicitis case needed attention. "Fine." The patient was in a recovery bay, his shoulder bandaged, his face pale but alert. He was maybe 25, tattooed neck, the ink crept up from his collar like vines. Wary eyes that tracked Marcus the moment he stepped through the curtain. When Marcus entered fully, the guy's expression shifted. Recognition mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. Or respect, hard to tell which. "You're the one who pulled the bullet," the guy said. His voice was rougher than expected, like he'd been shouting for hours. "I am." "You got steady hands, man. Real steady." The guy shifted on the gurney, winced at the pain. "Most docs, they're shaking when they work on guys like me. You didn't even blink. You ever been shot?" Marcus didn't answer that. "You need to follow up with your primary care in 2 weeks. Keep the wound clean. Change the dressing daily. If you see signs of infection, redness, swelling, fever, come back immediately." Yeah. The guy waved it off with his good arm. "Look, I don't know who you are, but I heard some things. People talk, you know? In my world, word gets around. They say you're not just some regular doc. They say you move different. You got that look." Marcus's expression didn't change. "People say a lot of things." "Yeah, well," the guy lowered his voice, glancing toward the curtain to make sure no one was listening. "Just a heads up. Word is, some heavy hitters are coming through Ridgewood soon. The kind of people who don't like attention. The kind who make problems disappear. Might be worth keeping your head down, staying out of sight. You seem like you know how to do that." Marcus studied him for a beat, reading the micro-expressions, the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes kept flicking to the exits. This wasn't just street gossip. This guy was scared, actually scared. Then Marcus turned and walked out without another word. The rest of the shift blurred together in that particular way ER shifts do. A montage of trauma and tedium, life and death compressed into 12-hour blocks. Marcus operated on the appendicitis case, clean, fast, textbook. The kid was 14, terrified, his parents even more so. Marcus didn't offer false comfort, just competence. He stitched up a drunk who'd fallen through a glass door, the man reeking of whiskey and self-pity. He pronounced a 70-year-old woman dead after a massive stroke, her family sobbing in the corner, clutching each other like shipwreck survivors. It was all routine, all normal. By the time Marcus clocked out, the sun was setting over Ridgewood, painting the skyline in shades of rust and orange. The city stretched out below the hospital hill, a sprawling mess of old industrial zones and newer development, of neighborhoods that hadn't decided yet whether they were gentrifying or dying. Marcus walked to his car, a battered Honda Civic that looked like it had survived a war, which, in a way, it had. He'd bought it cash from a used lot, no questions asked, and it ran like a tank. He drove through the city streets, past boarded-up storefronts with faded signs advertising businesses that had closed years ago, past graffiti-tagged walls that served as the neighborhood's unofficial bulletin board, until he reached a small apartment complex on the edge of town. The building was forgettable, the kind of place landlords bought as investment properties and then ignored. Perfect. His apartment was sparse. A couch that had come with the place. A bed. A kitchenette he rarely used because cooking for one felt pointless. On the wall, a single-framed photo, Marcus in uniform, much younger, standing with a group of hard-faced men in desert camouflage. They were all grinning, arms around each other's shoulders, the kind of photograph taken after a mission when you're still high on adrenaline and the fact that you're alive. He didn't look at it often, didn't need to. Those memories were etched deep enough, carved into the part of his brain that never really slept. He made himself a sandwich, turkey, cheese, nothing fancy, ate it standing up at the counter, then lay down on the couch and closed his eyes. Sleep came fast, but never lasted long. It never did. Within an hour, he was awake again, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the building settling. The couple upstairs arguing in muffled Spanish, the distant wail of sirens painting the night. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Marcus's phone buzzed, the screen lighting up the dark room like a flashbang. He grabbed it, already awake, already alert. His hand didn't shake. It never did. "Webb!" His voice was clear, no grogginess, no confusion. He could go from deep sleep to full alertness in seconds, a skill they'd beaten into him during training. "Dr. Webb, it's Angela from the ER. We need you back, now!" Her voice was tight, controlled panic barely held in check. "What happened?" "Mass casualty incident? Explosion at a warehouse on the east side near the old manufacturing district. We've got multiple critical incoming. ETA 5 minutes. All hands on deck. They're calling in everyone." Marcus was already moving, pulling on his scrubs from the chair where he'd left them. "I'm 10 minutes out. Make it faster if you can." "It's bad, Dr. Webb. Really bad." He hung up without responding and grabbed his keys. He drove fast, lights off, cutting through empty streets that looked apocalyptic under the sodium streetlights. Ridgewood at 3 a.m. was a different city, emptier, harder, stripped of its daytime pretense. By the time he reached Mercy General, the ER was already transforming into a war zone. Gurneys lined the hallways, blood pooling on the tile in dark, spreading stains that the janitors would never quite get clean. The smell hit him before he even pushed through the doors. Burnt flesh and diesel fuel and that particular copper tang of massive blood loss. It was a smell he knew intimately, a smell that brought back memories of field hospitals in places with no names, of soldiers screaming for medics who couldn't reach them fast enough. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a trauma kit from the supply station and dove in. The first patient was a man with third-degree burns over 60% of his body, his skin charred and weeping. The man was conscious, which was almost worse, his eyes wide with shock and agony, his mouth moving but no sounds coming out. Marcus barked orders, fluids, intubation, prep for transfer to the burn unit. 2 nurses scrambled to comply. Marcus inserted the ET tube with practiced ease, secured the airway, started the IV lines. The man's vitals were crashing. "Push epinephrine. Get him on pressors. Now!" Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. The nurses moved, their hands shaking but following his commands exactly. The second patient was a teenager with a sucking chest wound, his lung collapsed, his lips turning blue. Marcus worked fast, prepping the insertion site, pushing the chest tube through muscle and into the pleural space. There was a hiss of air, then blood and fluid started draining. The kid gasped, his oxygen saturation climbing. Marcus secured the tube and moved on. "Dr. Webb!" a resident called out, panicked. He was young, maybe a year out of medical school, his face sheet white. "We've got a bleeder in Bay 4, can't get it under control, she's crashing." Marcus moved. Bay 4 was chaos. A woman on the table, mid-30s, her abdomen opened like a biology textbook diagram, blood everywhere. The resident was fumbling with clamps, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the instruments. 2 nurses were trying to suction fast enough to keep the field visible. It wasn't working. "Step back," Marcus said. The resident obeyed immediately, relief flooding his face. Marcus took over, his movements smooth, deliberate. He identified the bleeder in seconds. A nicked hepatic artery, small but catastrophic. He clamped it with one hand while using the other to suction. The bleeding slowed. He worked methodically, repairing the damage with tiny, precise sutures, closing layer by layer. The room was silent except for the beep of monitors and the hiss of the ventilator. "She's stabilizing," the anesthesiologist said, surprise clear in her voice. "Pressure's coming up, heart rate's dropping into normal range." Marcus stepped back, stripping off his gloves. "Transfer her to ICU. Monitor for compartment syndrome and secondary bleeding. CBC every 4 hours." He moved to the next patient, and the next, and the next. Time lost meaning in the way it always did during mass casualty events. Minutes stretched into hours, hours compressed into moments. By the time the sun came up, Marcus had operated on 8 patients, performed emergency procedures on a dozen more. All of them survived. Every single one. Check. Dr. Vance found him in the locker room at 7:15 a.m. Scrubbing blood off his forearms. Marcus's scrubs were soaked through, his face drawn but composed. Vance looked tired, his silver hair disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed. "Hell of a night," Vance said, leaning against the door frame. Marcus didn't respond. He scrubbed harder, watching the water run pink, then clear. "You did good work out there, really good." Vance paused, seemed to be searching for words. "Look, about what I said earlier, about the probation, about you being replaceable. Forget it." Marcus dried his hands and reached for his jacket. "No, wait." Vance stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I was out of line. You're a damn fine surgeon, Webb. Better than fine. What you did tonight, that woman in Bay 4? Jenkins told me she was dead. He'd already mentally written the death note. You brought her back. I don't know where you came from, where you trained, but you've got skills. Real skills. The kind we don't see often." Marcus met his eyes. "Then let me do my job." Vance nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Consider the probation suspended. Just try to show up to at least one department meeting, yeah? Throw me a bone." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. "I'll think about it." But as Marcus walked toward the door, Vance called after him. "That warehouse explosion. Police are saying it wasn't an accident. Word is it's connected to something bigger, something federal. They've got suits crawling all over the scene, blocking out local PD. Nobody's talking, but you can feel it. Something's wrong in this city." Marcus paused at the door but didn't turn around. "Not my problem." "Yeah." Vance's voice was quiet. "That's what we all say, until it is." It became his problem 18 hours later. Marcus was in the middle of a routine hernia repair when the hospital's PA system crackled to life with that particular tone that made everyone freeze. "Code black? Code black. All personnel to secure positions. This is not a drill. Repeat code black. This is not a drill." The anesthesiologist looked up from her monitors, confused. "Code black? That's a bomb threat. We haven't had one of those in years." Marcus's hands didn't stop moving. "Finish the procedure." "But we're not leaving a patient open on the table." Marcus's voice was flat. "Keep him under. We'll be done in 10 minutes." But before he could close the first layer, the OR doors burst open. 2 men in dark suits and earpieces stepped in, their expressions hard, their posture screaming federal agent. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from carrying badges and guns and the authority to use both. "Dr. Marcus Webb?" Marcus didn't look up from the patient. "I'm in the middle of surgery. We need you to come with us. Now." The first agent's voice allowed for no argument. "I'm in the middle of surgery," Marcus repeated, his voice still flat, still controlled. He placed another suture, tied it off, moved to the next. "Unless you want this man to die of septic shock in the next hour, you can wait." One of the men stepped closer, his hand moving toward his jacket. "Sir, this is a matter of national security. We have authorization from—" "I don't care." Marcus tied off the last suture and started closing the muscle layer. "You can wait 5 minutes, or you can arrest me. Your choice. But either way, I'm finishing this procedure." The 2 men exchanged a glance. Something passed between them, a wordless communication that came from working together for years. Then, to everyone's shock, they stepped back and waited. Marcus closed the incision layer by layer, sutured the skin with the kind of precision that would leave minimal scarring, checked the vitals one last time. When he was satisfied, he stripped off his gloves and looked at the suits. "Let's go." They led him out of the OR, through the hospital corridors. Staff members stared. Whispers followed like a wake. Marcus kept his face blank, his stride even. They took him to a conference room on the administrative floor, one of the fancy ones usually reserved for board meetings and donor presentations. Inside, waiting, were 3 more people, 2 federal agents and a woman in a crisp military uniform, her insignia marking her as a colonel, her bearing marking her as someone who'd earned that rank the hard way. The colonel stood when Marcus entered. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. The kind of officer who'd probably come up through combat commands rather than desk jobs. "Dr. Webb, or should I say Major Webb?" The room went silent. One of the federal agents blinked, his carefully composed expression cracking. "Major?" Marcus didn't sit. "That life's over." "Not anymore." The colonel's voice was steady, matter of fact. "Last night's warehouse explosion wasn't random. It wasn't an industrial accident, wasn't gang violence, wasn't any of the stories the local news is peddling. It was a targeted strike on a federal asset, a safe house where we were holding a high-value intelligence source. The asset is dead. 2 agents are dead. And whoever did this knew exactly where to hit and when." She pulled out a tablet, swiped through several images, then turned it toward Marcus. The photos showed the warehouse, or what was left of it. The destruction was precise, surgical, too precise. "We have credible intelligence that a hostile cell is operating in Ridgewood City," the colonel continued. "Foreign-backed, highly trained, and they're planning something bigger, much bigger. The warehouse hit was just a probe, testing our response times, our capabilities. We need assets on the ground. We need someone who can operate in a civilian setting, who has the medical credentials to be here without raising suspicion. We need you." "I'm a doctor now, sir." Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. "You're a tactical surgeon with combat experience across 3 continents," the colonel shot back. "You've saved more lives under fire than most of these hospital staff will in their entire careers. You can operate in austere environments. You're trained in close-quarters combat. You speak 4 languages, and you have a security clearance that technically doesn't exist anymore. And right now, we need someone who can operate in a crisis and keep their mouth shut." Marcus stared at her. "I left for a reason." "I know, and I respect that." The colonel's voice softened, just slightly, the way a commander's voice does when they're asking for a volunteer instead of giving an order. "Kandahar, the friendly fire incident. I read the report. All of it, including the classified annexes. What happened wasn't your fault. The intel was bad. The chain of command was compromised, and you made the best call you could with the information you had. You saved 12 soldiers that day." "I lost 3. Marcus's jaw tightened. The memories were there, always there, playing on an endless loop behind his eyes. The explosion, the screaming, the smell of burning flesh that was exactly like what he'd smelled in the ER 8 hours ago. "You did." The colonel didn't look away. "And you've been punishing yourself for it ever since. But this isn't about your past, Major. It's about preventing something catastrophic. We've intercepted communications indicating a planned attack on a high-value target in this city within the next 72 hours. We can't evacuate without causing mass panic. We can't lock down the city without alerting the cell. So we go surgical, quiet, precise. And we need someone with your skill set embedded in a civilian setting." One of the federal agents leaned forward, his voice carefully neutral. "Dr. Vance doesn't know about your background. Neither does anyone else on staff. This stays compartmentalized. You continue your regular duties, you maintain your cover, and you feed us intelligence. If we need you to act, we'll activate you. Otherwise, you're just another ER doc." Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Then he looked back at the colonel. "And if I say no?" "Then we ask someone less qualified, and people die." The colonel's gaze didn't waver. "Civilians, hospital staff, maybe patients in this building. We don't have a lot of options here, Major. You're the best tool we have for this specific job. Your choice." Marcus's jaw worked. Outside the window, Ridgewood City sprawled under a gray sky, oblivious to the storm gathering just beneath its surface. He thought of the patients he'd saved last night, the chaos, the blood, the screaming. He thought of the gunshot victims' warning, heavy hitters coming through, the kind who make problems disappear. He thought of the 3 soldiers who'd died in Kandahar because the intel was bad, and Marcus had trusted the wrong people. Finally, Marcus spoke. "What do you need me to do?" The colonel allowed herself the smallest smile. "For now, be a doctor. Keep your eyes open. We'll insert a liaison into the hospital. Someone on staff will be your contact. They'll approach you with a phrase, 'Doctor, I need your opinion on a complex case.' That's your signal. From that point forward, you follow their lead. And the attack target? What are we protecting?" The colonel and the federal agents exchanged glances. It was the kind of look that said they'd already argued about this, already fought about how much to reveal. "There's a medical conference being held at the Ridgewood Convention Center in 60 hours, one of the agents said. "International delegation of health ministers, pharmaceutical executives, research scientists, over 300 attendees, the kind of target that would make international news for weeks. You think the cell is going after the conference? We think the conference is a distraction. The colonel's voice was grim. The real target is someone attending the conference. We just don't know who yet. Marcus absorbed that. What's my operational authority? You're a civilian consultant. No badge, no gun, no arrest powers. You observe and report. If the situation escalates, you protect lives using your medical expertise. If it escalates beyond that, the colonel paused. We'll reassess. That's a bullshit answer, Marcus said flatly. It's the only answer I can give you. The colonel stepped closer, lowering her voice. Look, I know what I'm asking. I know you walked away from this life because it cost you too much. But right now, you're the right person in the right place. Sometimes, that's all that matters. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp. I'm in. But if this goes sideways, if civilians are at risk and your bureaucracy gets in the way, I'm making my own calls. Understood. The colonel extended her hand. Marcus shook it. Her grip was firm, her skin calloused. Soldiers' hands. And in that moment, the room seemed to shift. The walls closer, the air heavier, charged with the weight of decisions made and lines crossed. Because everyone in that space knew, suddenly and completely, that the quiet doctor in scrubs wasn't just a surgeon. He was a weapon. And someone had just loaded the chamber. Marcus returned to the ER 40 minutes later. The code black had been lifted. False alarm, or so the official story went. The hospital buzzed with nervous energy, staff members clustered in small groups, trading rumors and theories. Marcus walked through it all without engaging, his expression neutral. Angela caught him at the nurse's station. Dr. Webb, are you okay? Those guys in suits, what did they want? Just some questions about last night's casualties, Marcus said smoothly. Federal investigation into the warehouse explosion. Nothing interesting. She looked unconvinced, but didn't push. Well, you've got a full board. 3 new traumas came in while you were gone. Dr. Patterson covered, but he's swamped. Marcus nodded and grabbed the first chart. Back to work. Back to normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. He moved through the afternoon shift on autopilot, his hands performing the familiar routines while his mind worked on a different level. Every person who entered the ER got a second look. Every visitor got assessed. Posture, gait, the way they held themselves, whether their eyes scanned the room or fixed on a target. Old habits coming back like muscle memory. At 6 p.m., a woman approached the desk. She was mid-40s, wearing business casual, her hospital ID marking her as Dr. Sarah Reeves, Administration. Marcus had seen her around but never worked with her directly. She walked up to him with a patient file in hand. Dr. Webb, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need your opinion on a complex case. Marcus's blood went cold. He kept his expression blank. Of course. Let's find somewhere quiet. They walked to an empty consultation room. The moment the door closed, Dr. Reeves's demeanor shifted. Her posture straightened, her eyes hardened. Major Webb, I'm Captain Sarah Reeves, Defense Intelligence Agency. I'll be your primary contact. Here's what we know so far. She laid out the intelligence, intercepted communications, surveillance footage, financial transactions. The hostile cell had at least 6 operatives in Ridgewood, possibly more. They'd been in the city for weeks, maybe months, building their network, acquiring materials. The warehouse explosion had been a test run, proof of concept. We've identified 3 possible targets at the medical conference, Reeves said, pulling up photos on her phone. A Saudi health minister with ties to intelligence services, a Chinese pharmaceutical executive who's actually MSS, and an American researcher working on a classified biodefense project. Any of them would be a strategic hit. So we're protecting all 3. We're trying, but the cell has been careful. We can't find their safe house, can't identify all the operatives. We're essentially flying blind until they make their move. And you want me to do what exactly? The conference has a medical support team. Standard protocol. Doctors on standby in case of emergencies. We've arranged for you to be added to that team. It puts you inside the venue, gives you access to all the key areas. You'll be our eyes on the ground. Marcus processed that. What about the hospital? I can't just vanish for 3 days. Dr. Vance has been told you're participating in a professional development opportunity. He wasn't happy, but he approved it. Your shifts are covered. And if something happens here, another mass casualty, then they'll manage without you, like they did before you arrived. Reeves's voice was matter of fact. I know it's not ideal, but right now, preventing an international incident takes priority. Marcus didn't like it, but he understood the calculus. When do I start? Tomorrow morning. Oh, 600 hours. There's a security briefing for all conference staff. I'll text you the location. She paused. One more thing. The cell knows about the warehouse hit investigation. They're going to be watching for federal presence, so you need to stay in character. You're a doctor, nothing more. No tactical gear, no weapons, no commando shit. You see something suspicious, you report it. You don't engage. Understood. Reeves studied him for a moment. I read your file. The full file, not just the sanitized version. What happened in Kandahar isn't relevant to this operation, Marcus cut her off. Maybe, maybe not. Reeves's voice softened slightly. Just remember, you're not alone this time. You've got a full team backing you up. Don't try to be a hero. After she left, Marcus stood in the empty consultation room for a long moment, staring at nothing. His hands were steady. His heartbeat was normal. But inside, in that place where the memories lived, something was stirring. Something he'd tried to bury 6 years ago when he'd walked away from his last mission. He checked his watch. His shift ended in 2 hours. After that, he needed to go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. But as Marcus walked back to the ER, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was already wrong. The timing was too perfect, the cell too quiet. It felt like the moments before an ambush, when the air gets heavy and your instincts scream at you to move, to do something, but you can't see the threat yet. And then, as if summoning his worst fears into reality, the hospital's PA system crackled to life again. Dr. Webb to the ER, stat. Dr. Webb to the ER, stat. Marcus ran. When he burst through the ER doors, the scene stopped him cold. Angela was pale, her hands shaking as she pointed to Trauma Bay 1. It's him, the gunshot patient from last night. Someone just brought him in. He's been shot again, execution style, back of the head. He's still alive, but barely. Marcus moved on instinct, pushing into the bay. The young man with the tattooed neck lay on the gurney, his eyes wide and terrified, blood pooling beneath his head. Someone had tried to kill him and failed. The bullet had entered at an angle, grazed the skull, plowed through tissue, but missed the brainstem. He was alive by millimeters. The man's eyes locked onto Marcus. His mouth moved, trying to form words. Marcus leaned close. They know, the man whispered, his voice a wet rasp. They know you're here. They know who you are. They're coming. For the hospital. Tonight. And then his eyes rolled back and the monitors started screaming. Marcus's hands moved before his brain caught up. He grabbed the ambu bag from the crash cart, squeezed oxygen into the man's failing lungs while his other hand reached for the man's carotid. Weak pulse. Thready. The monitors shrieked their warnings, blood pressure dropping, oxygen saturation plummeting into the 70s. Get me an airway kit and 2 units of ONEG, Marcus snapped. Angela was already moving, her training overriding her shock. Another nurse appeared with the intubation supplies. Marcus worked fast, sliding the laryngoscope blade into the man's mouth, visualizing the vocal cords through the blood pooling in his airway. The ET tube went in smooth. Marcus inflated the cuff, connected the ventilator. The oxygen sat started climbing. Pressure's still dropping, Angela said, her voice tight. 80/40. Marcus's mind raced through the possibilities. The bullet wound to the head was bleeding but not arterial. So where was the blood going? He ran his hands down the man's torso, found wetness under the left side. He ripped open the shirt. There, a second wound, small entry hole just below the ribs, easily missed in the chaos. Whoever had shot this guy hadn't just tried for the head. They'd gone for the body too. Professional work. He's got an abdominal GSW. Get me a chest tube kit and call surgery. We need an OR now. Marcus didn't wait for confirmation. He prepped the site, made the incision, pushed the tube through muscle and into the peritoneal cavity. Blood poured out, dark and thick. Liver laceration, maybe spleen. Either way, the guy was bleeding into his belly and running out of time. Dr. Patterson burst through the curtain, still in his street clothes, called back from his dinner break. "What have we got?" "2 GSWs, head and abdomen. Head wound superficial, but the belly's a mess. He needs exploratory lap, probably a splenectomy." Marcus stepped back to let Patterson assess. "And we need to move fast." Patterson looked at the monitors, at the blood draining from the tube, then at Marcus. "You know this patient?" "Treated him last night, different GSW." "Somebody really wants him dead." Patterson made a decision. "Let's take him up. Angela, call the OR, tell them we're coming hot." They moved as a unit, the gurney rolling fast through the corridors, Marcus keeping pressure on the abdominal wound while a respiratory tech bagged the patient. The elevator ride felt endless. When they reached the surgical floor, the OR team was already prepped and waiting. "We've got him from here," Patterson said. "Good work, Webb." Marcus stepped back, watching them wheel the gurney through the double doors. His scrubs were soaked with blood again, his hands sticky with it. He walked to the nearest sink and scrubbed, the water running red, then pink, then clear. The man's words echoed in his head. "They know who you are. They're coming for the hospital. Tonight." Marcus dried his hands and pulled out his phone. He texted Reeves, "Need to talk. Now. Patient brought in with critical intel. Threat level upgraded." The response came in seconds. "Secure location. 10 minutes." Marcus changed into fresh scrubs, then made his way to the roof access. The hospital had a helipad for emergency transfers, rarely used at night. He pushed through the door into the cold evening air. Ridgewood sprawled below, lights flickering on as darkness settled. Somewhere out there, people were planning something terrible. And they knew he was here. Reeves appeared exactly 10 minutes later, moving fast across the rooftop. She wasn't alone. 2 men in tactical gear flanked her, their rifles held low but ready. "Talk," Reeves said without preamble. Marcus relayed the conversation, word for word. Reeves's expression darkened with each sentence. "He said they're coming tonight? For the hospital specifically?" "That's what he said before he crashed." "Is he alive?" "For now, he's in surgery, but even if he makes it through, he took a bullet to the brain. He might not wake up, and if he does, he might not remember anything useful." One of the tactical operators spoke up. "Ma'am, if they know about Major Webb, this whole operation is compromised. We need to extract him and reassess." "No." Marcus's voice was flat. "If they're coming for the hospital, there are 300 patients in this building who can't evacuate. I'm not leaving." Reeves studied him. "The conference starts in 36 hours. If we pull you out now, we lose our inside man." "Then we don't pull me out." Marcus met her gaze. "But we need to harden this facility. How fast can you get a security team in place?" "For a civilian hospital? Not fast enough without raising questions." Reeves pulled out her phone, started typing rapidly. "I can get a team positioned outside, but inside you're limited to existing hospital security, and from what I've seen, that's 2 rent-a-cops with tasers. Then we work with what we have." Marcus's mind was already running through the building's layout, identifying choke points, vulnerable areas. The ER has 2 entrances, main sliding doors and the ambulance bay. Both have security cameras but no controlled access. The loading docks in the basement are completely unsecured. 3 stairwells, 2 elevators. If someone wanted to hit this place, they'd come through the basement or the ER during a shift change when everything's chaos. "You sound like you've thought about this before," Reeves said. "I've thought about a lot of things." Marcus checked his watch. "Shift change is in 90 minutes. If they're coming tonight, that's when they'll move." Reeves made a decision. "I'll position my team at the perimeter, unmarked vehicles, civilian clothes. If anyone tries to breach, we'll intercept. But inside, you're our early warning system. Something feels wrong, you call it in immediately. Don't wait for confirmation." "And the patient, the one in surgery?" "We'll put a guard on his room once he's out. Officially, he's a witness in a federal investigation." Reeves paused. "There's something else. We ran the warehouse explosion through our database. The signature matches a demolitions expert we've been tracking. Goes by the name Konstantin. Russian national, formerly FSB, went private about 5 years ago. Very expensive, very effective. If he's in Ridgewood, this isn't just some terror cell. This is state-sponsored." Marcus absorbed that. State-sponsored meant resources, training, backup plans. It meant the people coming weren't amateurs or ideologues. They were professionals, like him. "One more thing," Reeves said. "The patient who warned you, did he say how they found out about you?" Marcus shook his head. "He barely got the warning out before he went under." "Then we have a leak. Someone told them you're not just a doctor." Reeves's jaw tightened. "Which means someone inside our operation is compromised, or someone in this hospital has been watching you more carefully than we thought." After Reeves and her team left, Marcus stood alone on the roof for a moment, letting the cold air clear his head. The city stretched out below, indifferent and vast. Somewhere down there, people were eating dinner, watching television, living their lives. They had no idea what was coming. He went back inside. The ER was quieter now, that brief lull that sometimes happened around 7 o'clock before the night crowd started arriving. Marcus checked the board. Nothing critical, a few minor cases. Angela was at the nurse's station, updating charts. "Dr. Webb?" She looked up, concerned. "You okay? You've been through hell twice in 24 hours. "I'm fine." It was a lie, but a necessary one. "The patient from earlier, any word from surgery?" Dr. Patterson called down. "They got the spleen out, repaired the liver laceration. Touch and go, but he's stable. They're moving him to ICU." Angela hesitated. "There's something weird, though. 2 federal agents showed up and posted themselves outside the OR. Wouldn't say why, wouldn't let anyone near him except surgical staff." "He's a witness," Marcus said. "That's all I know." Angela didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Marcus grabbed a tablet and started reviewing labs, trying to look normal, trying to blend back into the routine. But his awareness was cranked to maximum. Every person who walked through those ER doors got assessed. Every sound got cataloged. At 7:45, a man in a delivery uniform pushed through the main entrance carrying a large cardboard box. He approached the reception desk. "Delivery for Dr. Vance," the man said. The receptionist barely looked up. "Leave it here. I'll make sure he gets it." The delivery man set the box down and left. Marcus watched the whole interaction from 20 feet away. Something felt wrong. The man's posture was too straight, too controlled. His eyes had scanned the room too systematically. And who delivered packages to hospital chiefs at 8 o'clock at night? Marcus walked over casually. "What's in the box?" The receptionist shrugged. "Medical supplies, probably. Dr. Vance orders stuff all the time." Marcus knelt down, examining the box without touching it. Standard brown cardboard, address label printed, no company logo. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the label, then texted it to Reeves with a single word. "Suspicious." Her response was immediate. "Don't touch it. Evacuating you now." "I need you to clear this area," Marcus said to the receptionist, keeping his voice calm. "Right now. Get everyone away from the front desk." "What? Why?" "Just do it. Now." Something in his tone made her move. She stood up, started ushering people toward the back of the ER. Marcus backed away from the box. His heart rate climbing, but his hands steady. If it was a bomb, it could be on a timer or remote trigger. If he was wrong, he'd look paranoid and stupid. But that delivery guy had moved wrong, looked wrong. Reeves burst through the doors 2 minutes later with her tactical team. They'd traded their rifles for concealed sidearms, trying to look less military, but their eyes told the real story. One of them had a portable detector, swept it over the box. The device beeped twice, then went solid red. "Explosive device confirmed," the operator said quietly. "Small signature, probably less than 2 pounds, but in an ER. It'd take out everyone in the waiting room." Reeves's face went hard. "Bomb squad is 15 minutes out. Can you disarm?" "Not my specialty, ma'am." Marcus looked at the box, at the people crowding in the back hallways, frightened and confused. Through the windows, he could see the parking lot, the street beyond. If they evacuated the ER, where would the patients go? And how long before the panic spread through the whole hospital? "We need to move it," Marcus said. "Get it away from people." "That's not protocol," the operator said. "We're supposed to secure the area and wait for the squad." "Your protocol doesn't account for 300 patients who can't be evacuated." Marcus was already moving, grabbing a heavy equipment cart. "Help me or don't, but I'm moving it." Reeves looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded to her team. Do it, slowly. Marcus and one of the operators lifted the box with exaggerated care, placed it on the cart. Marcus pushed it toward the ambulance bay doors. If the thing went off, better outside than in. His hands were steady, but his mind was screaming at him that this was insane, that any wrong movement could trigger the device. They made it through the doors. The cold night air hit Marcus's face. He kept pushing the cart across the ambulance bay toward the far edge of the parking lot where a retention pond sat empty. 50 feet, 40, 30. Behind him, Reeves was on her phone, barking orders. Security was cordoning off the area. Staff members pressed against the windows, watching. Marcus reached the edge of the retention pond, a concrete depression designed to catch runoff. He looked at the operator. On 3. We tip it in and run. The operator nodded. 1, 2, 3. They shoved the cart forward. The box tumbled into the depression, landed with a soft thud. Marcus and the operator sprinted back toward the building. 20 feet, 15, 10. The explosion was smaller than Marcus expected, a sharp crack rather than a boom, but the flash was brilliant in the darkness. The shockwave hit them from behind, not hard enough to knock them down, but enough to feel. Debris pattered on the asphalt, then silence. Marcus turned. The retention pond was scorched black, concrete cracked. The cart was in pieces, but the building was intact. The people inside were safe. Reeves jogged up, her face pale. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest. Probably both. Marcus's heart was hammering now, the adrenaline catching up. They sent a message. They want us scared. It worked. Reeves looked back at the building. This changes everything. They're not waiting for the conference. They're making moves now. The bomb squad arrived 10 minutes later, suited up, scanning for secondary devices. They found nothing. The police came next, cordoning off the area, taking statements. Marcus gave his statement to a detective who looked skeptical but wrote everything down. By the time the scene was secured, it was past 10 o'clock, and the ER was backed up with patients who'd been held in the waiting room during the evacuation. Dr. Vance found Marcus in the hallway. What the hell is going on, Webb? First the warehouse casualties, then a critically wounded witness under federal protection, now a bomb? This hospital is turning into a war zone. I don't know what's happening, Marcus said, which was technically true from Vance's perspective. But I know we've got patients who need treatment. So unless you want me to stand here and speculate, I'm going back to work. Vance opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Fine, but if any more federal agents show up asking for you, I want to know why. Marcus didn't answer. He went back to the ER, grabbed the next chart, dove back into the work. Laceration repair, broken wrist, asthma attack. The routine cases felt almost absurdly normal after what had just happened. Angela pulled him aside around midnight. There's something you should know. That delivery guy? The one who brought the box? I saw him on the security footage. He didn't arrive in a delivery truck. He walked in from the parking lot carrying the box. And his uniform was wrong. No company patches, no ID badge. I should have caught it. Not your job to screen deliveries, Marcus said. But from now on, anyone bringing in packages after hours gets stopped at the desk until security checks them out. Already done. Dr. Vance put out the order. Marcus nodded. At least Vance was taking the threat seriously now. Go home, Angela. You've been here for 12 hours. So have you. I'm staying. Marcus's voice allowed for no argument. If they were coming tonight, he needed to be here. Angela left reluctantly. The ER quieted again, that deep night lull when even the drunks and overdoses took a break. Marcus used the time to walk the hospital's perimeter, checking exits, noting camera positions. The basement loading dock was exactly as unsecured as he remembered. A single camera that looked broken, a door that opened with a push bar, no guards. He was standing in the basement, considering how to secure the dock without making it obvious, when his phone buzzed. Reeves. ICU patient awake, asking for you. Marcus took the stairs 2 at a time. The ICU was on the 4th floor, a hushed space of beeping monitors and soft lighting. The federal agents were still posted outside room 447, looking tired but alert. They stepped aside when Marcus showed his hospital ID. Inside, the young man with the tattooed neck lay in bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines. His head was bandaged, his face pale, but his eyes were clear, alert. "You came," the man said, his voice rough. "You asked for me." "I'm going to die, aren't I? They're going to come finish the job." "Not while I'm here." Marcus pulled up a chair. "What's your name?" The man hesitated. Luis Cordero." "Luis, I need you to tell me everything you know. Who shot you? Why? What did you mean when you said they're coming for the hospital?" Luis closed his eyes. "I'm just a runner, man. I move product, make deliveries, small-time shit. But a few weeks ago, I got hired for a different kind of job. Some guys, foreign accents, paid me to scout locations around the city. They wanted to know about security, patrol patterns, shift changes. I thought it was just for a robbery or something." "What locations?" "The convention center, this hospital, the federal building downtown." Luis opened his eyes. "I didn't think much of it until I saw the warehouse blow up. Then I knew it was serious. I tried to disappear, lay low, but they found me, dragged me into an alley, put a gun to my head, asked me if I'd talked to anyone, asked specifically about you." Marcus felt cold. "Me? By name?" "No. They described you. Said there was a doctor at Mercy General who was asking questions, who moved like he had training. They wanted to know if I'd talked to you in the ER. I said no, but they didn't believe me." Luis's voice shook. "They shot me and left me to die, but I guess their aim sucked because I woke up in a dumpster. My cousin found me, brought me here. I tried to warn you before I passed out." "What else did they say? Anything about their plans?" "Just that tonight was important, that everything had to go smooth. One of them kept checking his watch, saying they only had a few hours." Luis looked at Marcus with desperate eyes. "I don't want to die, man. Whatever you are, whatever you're doing, I'll help. Just don't let them kill me." Marcus stood. "No one's getting to you, I promise." He left the room, nodded to the agents, then called Reeves from the stairwell. "We need to talk, in person, now." They met in the hospital chapel, a small interfaith space that was empty at this hour. Reeves listened to Luis's information, her expression growing darker. "They're not coming for the conference," she said when Marcus finished. "Or at least that's not the primary target. They're coming for something here, tonight." "But what?" "This is a hospital. What could they possibly—" Marcus stopped. "The patient. The asset from the warehouse. The one they killed. Where was he being transferred?" Reeves went pale. "Here. He was scheduled for emergency surgery here tomorrow morning. There's a specialist at Mercy General who's the only surgeon in 3 states who can perform the procedure he needed." "Who's the specialist?" "Dr. Harold Vance." The pieces clicked into place. "They're coming for Vance, either to kill him or to use him. And they knew the asset was being transferred here, which means they have someone inside our operation, or inside this hospital." Reeves was already moving, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling this in. We need to lock down the building, get Vance to a secure location, evacuate if necessary." "It's too late for that." Marcus grabbed her arm. "They're already here." Through the chapel's small window, Marcus could see the parking lot. A white van had just pulled up to the emergency entrance. 4 men got out, moving with purpose. They were dressed like EMTs, pushing a gurney with a patient on it. But their movements were too synchronized, too tactical, and the patient on the gurney wasn't moving at all. "That's them," Marcus said. Reeves looked, swore viciously. "How many?" 4 visible. Probably more in the van. Marcus was already moving toward the door. "Call your team. I'm going down there." "Wait, you're unarmed. You're not—" "I'm the only one who can stop them without them knowing they've been compromised." Marcus didn't wait for her approval. He ran. The stairwell was empty, the concrete walls amplifying the sound of Marcus's footsteps as he descended 3 floors in less than 30 seconds. His mind was already working through the tactical problem. 4 hostiles, possibly armed, definitely trained, moving through a civilian environment packed with witnesses and innocents. He couldn't engage them directly without risking patients and staff. He needed to disrupt their operation, force them to reveal themselves, buy time for Reeves's team to get into position. He hit the first floor and slowed, controlling his breathing, letting his face go blank. The automatic doors to the ER slid open. The fake EMTs were already inside, talking to the triage nurse. Marcus walked toward them with the unhurried stride of a doctor on rounds, his eyes taking in details. The gurney held what looked like a middle-aged man in respiratory distress, oxygen mask on, chest heaving. But the rhythm was wrong, too regular, too controlled. The man was faking it. The 4 EMTs were positioned around the gurney in a diamond formation, their body language all wrong for medical personnel. Too alert, too focused on the room's exits rather than their patient. The lead EMT was talking to the triage nurse. 53-year-old male, difficulty breathing, history of COPD. We need a doctor now. Marcus stepped forward. I've got this. The lead EMT's eyes flicked to Marcus. A microsecond of evaluation. We need to get him into a bay immediately. We will. Soon as we have space. Marcus leaned over the gurney, placing his fingers on the patient's wrist as if checking a pulse. His voice dropped to a murmur only the fake patient could hear. I know you're not sick. I know why you're here. And in about 30 seconds, this building is going to be crawling with federal agents who will shoot first and ask questions later. So you have a choice. Leave now while you can, or stick around and see how this plays out. The man's eyes widened behind the oxygen mask. His breathing actually did hitch, real fear replacing fake distress. The lead EMT stepped closer. Is there a problem, doctor? Marcus straightened, keeping his face neutral. No problem, but this patient's vitals are stable. He can wait. We've got 3 criticals ahead of him. That's not acceptable. He needs immediate care. Then take him to County General. They've got capacity. Marcus met the man's eyes directly. Or you can wait. Your call. The tension stretched like a wire pulled tight. The lead EMT's hand moved slightly toward his jacket. Marcus tracked the movement, calculated angles, distances. If the man went for a weapon, Marcus would have maybe 2 seconds to respond. And there were too many people in the ER. A kid with a broken arm, an elderly woman on oxygen, staff members clustered at the desk. Then the EMT's radio crackled. A voice spoke in rapid Russian. Marcus didn't speak the language, but he caught the urgency. The EMT responded in the same language, his eyes never leaving Marcus. We're leaving, the EMT said finally. This patient needs a higher level of care than you can provide. Probably wise. They turned the gurney around, moved toward the exit. Marcus watched them go, every muscle coiled. The automatic doors slid open. The fake patient sat up on the gurney as they moved into the parking lot, and Marcus saw him reach under the blanket. Not a weapon, a phone. He was texting someone. Marcus's own phone buzzed. Reeves. They're pulling back. Why? He texted back. They know we're on to them. Abort signal. But they're regrouping, not retreating. The white van pulled away from the curb. Marcus committed the license plate to memory, watched the vehicle turn onto the main road and disappear into traffic. His heart was hammering, but his hands were steady. That had been too close. And too easy. They'd given up without a fight, which meant the realization hit like ice water. They'd been probing, testing the response. They wanted to know how fast security would react, what the protocols were. And now they knew that Marcus had made them, which meant the element of surprise was gone. He turned and nearly collided with Dr. Vance, who'd appeared behind him with his arms crossed and his face red. What the hell was that? Vance demanded. Those EMTs are going to file a complaint. You don't turn away emergency patients, Webb. I don't care what kind of night you've had. Those weren't real EMTs. Marcus kept his voice low. And that wasn't a real patient. They were casing the building. Vance blinked. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that this hospital is under threat. The bomb earlier wasn't random. There's a credible plan to attack this facility, and it's happening tonight. That's insane. Who would... Vance stopped, his eyes widening. The federal agents, the witness protection. This is about that, isn't it? About whatever that patient knows. It's bigger than that. Marcus glanced around, making sure no one was listening. Doctor, Vance, I need you to trust me. Go to your office, lock the door, and don't come out until security gives you the all clear. I'm the chief of surgery. I'm not hiding in my office while you're the target. Marcus's voice was flat. They're coming for you specifically. I don't have time to explain why, but if you value your life and the lives of everyone in this building, you'll do what I'm telling you. Vance stared at him. Who are you, Webb? Really? Right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and people who are very good at killing. Marcus met his eyes. Please, go. Vance hesitated, then nodded. My office. But I want answers when this is over. You'll get them. As Vance hurried toward the elevators, Marcus pulled out his phone and called Reeves. They were here for reconnaissance. They'll come back with a different approach. We've got teams covering every entrance now, Reeves said. Unmarked cars, surveillance. If they try again, we'll see them coming. Unless they're already inside. Marcus was moving through the ER, his eyes scanning faces. How many ways can someone get into this building? Official entrances, service entrances, maintenance access? Too many. It's a hospital, not a fortress. Then we assume they're already here, hidden in plain sight. Could be visitors, could be staff. They've had weeks to prepare. Marcus reached the nurse's station, grabbed a tablet, pulled up the staff directory. I need you to run background checks on every employee hired in the last 3 months. Anyone with military or law enforcement experience. Anyone with overseas connections. That's hundreds of people. Then narrow it down. Start with anyone who has access to Vance's schedule, his movements, his surgical calendar. There was a pause. You think someone on the inside is feeding them information? I know they are. That's the only way they'd know about the asset transfer, about Vance being the surgeon. Someone here is compromised. Marcus looked up as Angela returned from her break, looking exhausted. I've got to go. Send me that list as soon as you have it. He hung up and intercepted Angela before she reached the desk. I need you to do something for me. Don't ask questions, just do it. She looked wary. What? Pull the duty roster for tonight. Tell me who's working, who wasn't scheduled originally. Dr. Webb, I can't just… Angela, please. Marcus softened his voice. I know you're tired. I know this night has been crazy, but I need this information right now. Lives depend on it. Something in his tone must have convinced her. She logged into the system, pulled up the roster. There are 3 people working tonight who picked up shifts last minute. 2 nurses and 1 orderly. That's not unusual. People swap shifts all the time. Names. Melissa Harper, ICU nurse. David Kim, ER nurse on the overnight. And Jackson Reeves, orderly. Marcus froze. Reeves? Yeah, common last name. He started about 6 weeks ago. Keeps to himself mostly. Does his job. Why? Marcus was already moving. Where is he now? I don't know. Probably in the supply room or doing a transport. Angela followed him. Dr. Webb, what's going on? If you see Jackson Reeves, do not approach him. Call security immediately. Tell them he's a safety threat. You think he's involved in… I don't think. I know. Marcus's mind was racing. The fake delivery guy, the bomb, the reconnaissance team. They'd all been distractions. The real threat was already inside, had been inside for weeks, mapping the building, learning the patterns. And he had the same last name as the DIA officer running the operation. That couldn't be coincidence. Either it was a taunt or… Marcus's phone rang. Reeves. We've got a situation. One of my operators just reported in. He was doing a perimeter check and found 2 of our team members unconscious in the parking garage, stripped of their gear, weapons, and IDs. When? Within the last 20 minutes. They're not coming. They're already here. Marcus hit the stairwell, started climbing. I need you to get to Vance's office right now, and I need you to tell me the truth. Do you have any relatives who know about your assignment here? What? No, of course not. Why would I… Reeves went silent. Wait, I have a cousin. Jackson Reeves. He's career military, special forces, but he's overseas, been deployed for 8 months. I haven't talked to him since last Christmas. He's not overseas. He's working as an orderly in this hospital, and I'm betting he's not your cousin anymore. That's impossible. Jackson would never… They got to him, or they replaced him. Either way, he's compromised. Marcus reached the 2nd floor. Where's Vance's office? 3rd floor, administrative wing, room 312. Marcus took the next flight 3 steps at a time. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're too late. He burst through the stairwell door onto the 3rd floor. The administrative wing was quiet, dimly lit, most offices dark. Vance's door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. Marcus approached slowly, every sense screaming danger. He pushed the door open with his foot. The office was empty. Vance's chair was overturned, his desk lamp broken on the floor. And on the desk, a phone playing a video. Marcus recognized the room immediately, the ICU. The camera was positioned to show Luis Cordero's bed. Two figures in tactical gear stood over him, their faces masked. One held a pistol to Luis's head. The other held up a sign with words written in marker. "We have the surgeon too, basement loading dock. 30 minutes. Come alone, or they both die." The video cut off. Marcus stood frozen for 3 seconds, his mind processing, calculating. Then he moved. He texted Reeves. "They have Vance and Luis. Basement loading dock. It's a trap, but I'm going anyway." Her response came immediately. "Negative. Wait for backup." Marcus ignored it. He went to Vance's desk, rifled through drawers until he found what he was looking for. A letter opener, heavy brass, about 6 inches long. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. He slipped it into his pocket and headed for the stairs. The hospital was quieter now, past midnight, that dead zone when even the ER slowed down. Marcus moved through empty corridors, avoiding security cameras where he could, keeping his face neutral when he couldn't. Staff members passed him without a second glance, just another doctor on night rounds. The basement was accessed through a service elevator near the cafeteria. Marcus took the stairs instead, emerging into a concrete hallway that smelled of industrial cleaner and decay. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping condensation. Fluorescent lights flickered. This was the hospital's underbelly, the part patients never saw. He followed the signs toward the loading dock. The hallway opened into a larger space, the receiving area where supplies were delivered and waste was hauled away. Large rolling doors dominated one wall. Pallets of boxes sat stacked against another. And in the center of the space, illuminated by a single work light, Dr. Harold Vance knelt on the concrete floor with his hands zip-tied behind his back. Two men flanked him, both wearing black tactical gear, both armed with suppressed pistols. A third man stood farther back, arms crossed, watching. He was older, late 40s, with the kind of weathered face that came from years of hard living. His eyes tracked Marcus the moment he stepped into the light. "Dr. Webb." The man's accent was Eastern European, his English precise. "Right on time. I'm impressed by your punctuality." Marcus stopped 20 feet away, his hands visible, his posture relaxed. "Where's Luis?" "The witness? He's being dealt with as we speak. He won't be a problem anymore." The man smiled, cold and professional. "My name is Constantine. You've probably heard of me." "Can't say I have." "Modest. I like that." Constantine gestured to Vance. "This man is very important to certain interests. He was scheduled to perform a surgery tomorrow that would have saved the life of someone we'd rather see dead. We can't allow that. But we're not unreasonable people. We'll let him live if you cooperate." "Cooperate how?" "You're going to kill him for us." Constantine pulled out a syringe from his pocket, held it up to the light. "Potassium chloride. Untraceable if administered correctly. Causes cardiac arrest. Very clean, very simple. You inject Dr. Vance, we leave. Everyone goes home happy." Vance's eyes were wide with terror. "Webb, don't!" One of the guards slammed a fist into Vance's kidney. The surgeon gasped, doubled over. Marcus didn't move. "And if I refuse?" "Then we kill you both. But that creates complications, bodies, investigations, security footage. Much cleaner if the good doctor simply has a heart attack brought on by stress. Who would question it? He's been working long hours, under pressure, dealing with a bombing at his own hospital." Constantine's smile widened. "You see the elegance." "I see a man who talks too much." Marcus took a step forward. "Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to let Vance go. You're going to walk out of here, and you're going to leave Ridgewood and never come back." Constantine laughed. "And why would we do that?" "Because in about 90 seconds, a tactical team is going to breach that door behind you, because this entire conversation has been recorded and transmitted to federal agents. And because you've already lost." Constantine's smile faltered. He pulled out a radio, spoke rapidly in Russian. The response came back tense, urgent. His expression darkened. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Try me." Marcus's voice was flat. "Your window for escape is closing. You can take your shot at me, maybe you even succeed. But you won't make it out of this building alive. So here's your choice. Leave now and live to fight another day, or die in a hospital basement. What's it going to be?" Constantine's eyes flicked to his guards, then to the exits. Marcus could see the calculation happening, the professional's instinct for self-preservation warring with pride. Then everything went wrong. The door behind Constantine exploded inward, but it wasn't Reeves's team. It was 3 more armed men moving fast and aggressive. Marcus recognized the fake EMT from earlier in the lead. They opened fire immediately, not at Marcus, but at Constantine. Constantine dove behind a pallet, returning fire. His guards scattered. Vance screamed and threw himself flat on the concrete. Marcus was already moving, sprinting toward Vance even as bullets cracked through the air. He grabbed the surgeon by the shoulders, dragged him behind a stack of boxes. "Stay down!" Marcus shouted over the gunfire. "What the hell is happening?" Vance's voice was shrill with panic. "Disagreement between business partners." Marcus pulled out the letter opener, sawed through the zip ties on Vance's wrists. "Can you run?" "I think so." An explosion rocked the loading dock. One of the attackers had thrown a flashbang. The world went white and silent. Marcus's ears rang. He grabbed Vance and hauled him toward the nearest exit, moving on instinct and training. Behind them, the firefight continued, muzzle flashes strobing in the darkness. They made it to the hallway. Marcus pushed Vance ahead. "Run to security. Tell them we have an active shooter situation. Go." Vance didn't argue. He ran, his dress shoes slapping on concrete. Marcus turned back. Through the doorway, he could see Constantine's team was pinned down, outgunned. The fake EMTs were advancing, professional and methodical. This wasn't a rescue. This was a purge. Someone had decided Constantine was a liability. Marcus's tactical mind processed the options. He could leave, get to safety, let them kill each other. Or he could try to stop the massacre and maybe capture someone alive who could provide intel. The smart play was to walk away. But smart wasn't always right. He spotted a fire alarm on the wall. He pulled it. Instantly, sirens shrieked. Strobe lights activated. The sprinkler system engaged, water cascading from ceiling fixtures. The gunfire stopped as both sides reacted to the sudden chaos. Marcus used the distraction. He moved back into the loading dock, staying low, using the pallets for cover. One of Constantine's guards was down, bleeding from a chest wound. The other was trying to drag him to safety. Constantine himself was behind a rolling cart, his pistol tracking targets. Their eyes met across the space. Recognition flared in Constantine's expression. Not hatred, but something like respect. 2 professionals caught in the same bad situation. Then the fake EMT team spotted Marcus. One of them raised his weapon. Marcus dove behind a pallet as bullets chewed through cardboard and plastic. He scrambled backward, felt something hard press into his spine. He turned. A fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. Marcus ripped it free, pulled the pin, and threw it like a grenade toward the EMT team. It bounced once, twice, then one of them shot it. The extinguisher exploded in a cloud of white powder and compressed gas. Visibility dropped to 0. Marcus ran. He hit the hallway at a sprint, turned the corner, and nearly collided with Reeves and her tactical team coming the other way. "Basement loading dock," Marcus gasped. 2 hostile groups, at least 6 shooters. Vance is safe, heading to security. "One witness down in ICU. You need to check on him now." Reeves was already barking orders into her radio. Her team moved past Marcus with practiced efficiency, weapons up, moving as a unit. Marcus followed at a distance, his heart hammering, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was ebbing. By the time they reached the loading dock, it was over. 3 bodies on the ground, all from Constantine's team. The fake EMTs had vanished, escaped through the loading dock doors into the night. Constantine himself was gone, either dead and taken or escaped with the attackers. Reeves's team secured the scene, checked for survivors. One of Constantine's guards was still breathing, barely. Marcus knelt beside him, checked his pulse. Weak and thready, but there. "Get me a med kit," Marcus said. A tactical operator handed him one. Marcus worked fast, packing the chest wound, starting an IV. The guard's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Stay with me," Marcus said. "You're going to make it." The guard's lips moved. Marcus leaned closer. "Constantine has a fallback." The words were barely audible. "Convention center. Tonight, 3 a.m. He's going to..." The guard's eyes rolled back. His pulse stopped. Marcus started compressions, counting in his head, breathing for him. But it was too late. The man was gone. Marcus sat back on his heels, exhausted. Around him, Reeves's team was documenting the scene, collecting evidence. It looked like a war zone. Bullet holes, blood, water still dripping from the sprinklers. Reeves approached, her face grim. "Luis is alive. They tried to get to him, but our guards held them off. He's being moved to a secure facility as we speak." She paused. "What did that guard tell you?" "Convention Center, tonight, 3 a.m. Marcus checked his watch. It was 1:47 a.m. "Constantine's going for the conference early, before security is fully in place." "That's impossible. The venue doesn't open until tomorrow morning. There's no one there except overnight security." "That's exactly why he's going now." Marcus stood, his legs unsteady. "He's going to plant something, explosives, chemical agents, something that will trigger when the conference starts. We need to evacuate the convention center right now." Reeves pulled out her phone, started making calls. Marcus walked out of the loading dock, needing air, needing space to think. He made it to the parking lot before his legs gave out. He sat on a curb, his head in his hands. He'd saved Vance. He'd stopped the attack on the hospital. But Constantine was still out there, still operational, and now he was cornered and desperate. Desperate men made catastrophic choices. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Marcus opened it. A single photo. The interior of the Ridgewood Convention Center's main hall. Empty chairs arranged in rows. A podium at the front. And in the foreground, partially visible in the frame, what looked like industrial equipment that didn't belong. The text below the photo read, "You can't stop what's already done. The real question is, are you willing to sacrifice 300 innocents to catch me? Clock's ticking, Major. Choose wisely." Marcus stared at the screen, ice flooding his veins. Because he understood now. This had never been about killing Vance or silencing Luis. Those were distractions, misdirections. The real target had always been the conference. And Constantine had just told him the bomb was already in place. And if Marcus raised the alarm, if they evacuated, Constantine would trigger it remotely and kill everyone anyway. But if they tried to disarm it quietly, they might not find it in time. Either way, people died. Marcus looked up at the sky, at the stars barely visible through Ridgewood's light pollution, and realized he'd been outplayed from the start. Marcus forced himself to breathe, to think past the cold dread settling in his chest. He stared at the photo on his phone, the convention center, the equipment that didn't belong, the implicit threat. Constantine was right about one thing, the clock was ticking. But he was wrong about Marcus having to choose between catching him and saving lives. There was always a third option. You just had to be willing to pay the price for it. He stood up from the curb, his legs steadier now, and walked back toward the hospital entrance. Reeves was in the parking lot coordinating with her team, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression tight. She saw Marcus approaching and ended her call. "We're mobilizing everything we have," she said. "Bomb squad, tactical units, hazmat. We'll sweep the convention center top to bottom." That's what he wants. Marcus showed her the photo. "He sent this 2 minutes ago. He's watching our response in real time. The second we roll up with lights and sirens, he triggers whatever he's planted." Reeves studied the image, her jaw working. "Then what do you suggest? We can't just ignore a credible bomb threat." "We don't ignore it. We go in quiet. One person, minimal footprint, no visible law enforcement presence." Marcus met her eyes. "Me." "Absolutely not. You're not trained for explosive ordnance disposal. You're a doctor. I'm a tactical surgeon who spent 8 months embedded with EOD teams in Helmand Province. I'm not certified to disarm a bomb, but I know what to look for. I know how these devices are built." Marcus's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "And more importantly, Constantine thinks I'm predictable. He expects me to call in the cavalry, so we do the opposite." Reeves shook her head. "This is insane. If something goes wrong, then I die and you still have time to evacuate the conference before it starts." Marcus pulled out his car keys. "But if I can find the device and give you a location, your bomb squad can move in from multiple angles. No single point of entry for him to monitor. Better odds." "You're asking me to send a civilian into a potential kill zone with no backup." "I'm asking you to trust that I know what I'm doing." Marcus started toward his car. "You have 10 seconds to decide. After that, I'm going anyway. Reeves swore under her breath, then pulled out her phone. Fine, but you're wearing a wire and you're taking one of my operators with you. Non-negotiable. Deal. 20 minutes later, Marcus was in the back of an unmarked van 3 blocks from the Ridgewood Convention Center, getting fitted with surveillance equipment by a tech specialist who looked young enough to be in high school. A small microphone clipped to his collar, a camera hidden in the button of his shirt, an earpiece so small it was nearly invisible. Audio and video feed go directly to our command center, the tech said. Battery life is 4 hours. Try not to get shot. These things are expensive. The operator Reeves had assigned was a woman in her 30s named Torres, compact and efficient, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She checked her sidearm with practiced ease, then looked at Marcus. Ground rules, Torres said. I'm not here to play hero. My job is to watch your back and call in the strike team if things go sideways. You see the device, you back off, and let the professionals handle it. Clear? Crystal. They exited the van 2 blocks from the convention center, walking separately, casual. The streets were empty at this hour, just the occasional taxi passing by. The convention center was a modern glass and steel structure, 7 stories tall, taking up an entire city block. Security lights illuminated the perimeter, but Marcus could see gaps in coverage, blind spots where cameras didn't reach. Torres spoke softly into her comm unit, too quiet for Marcus to hear. Then she nodded toward a service entrance on the east side. Maintenance door, lock's been compromised, probably how they got in. You first. I'll be 30 seconds behind. Marcus approached the door, testing the handle. It opened smoothly, too smoothly. Someone had definitely been here recently. He slipped inside, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The service corridor was narrow, concrete walls, exposed piping overhead, the smell of industrial cleaner and old carpet. He moved forward slowly, every sense alert. Torres materialized behind him like a ghost, her weapon held low and ready. They advanced through the corridor, passing storage rooms and utility closets, until they reached a door marked Main Hall Access. Marcus pushed it open carefully. The convention center's main hall stretched before them, easily 200 feet long, 50 feet wide, with a high ceiling and exposed ductwork. Rows of chairs faced a stage at the far end. Emergency exit signs cast a red glow over everything. And there, in the center aisle about 50 feet away, was the device. It wasn't subtle. A metal framework about 4 feet tall, supporting what looked like industrial sprayers connected to tanks of compressed gas. Marcus recognized the configuration immediately. Not a bomb in the traditional sense. Something worse. Chemical dispersal system, he whispered into his comm, designed to aerosolize a liquid agent through the ventilation. Once the conference starts and people are packed in here, they'd activate it remotely. Everyone would be exposed before they even knew something was wrong. Reeves's voice crackled in his earpiece. Can you identify the agent? Marcus moved closer, Torres covering him. The tanks were labeled in Cyrillic script. Marcus pulled out his phone, used the translation app. His blood went cold when he read the result. Novichok, he said quietly. Military-grade nerve agent, Russian origin, lethal in microscopic doses. Jesus, Reeves's voice was tight. Okay, back away slowly. We're calling in hazmat and containment. This is beyond... Wait. Marcus had spotted something else. A secondary device attached to the base of the framework, a small metal box with a digital display. He crouched down, studying it from 3 feet away. There's a dead man switch. It's monitoring a cellular signal. If the signal drops, the device activates automatically. Torres leaned in. So if we jam his phone or he loses connection, everyone dies. Yeah. Marcus's mind raced through options. We need to keep the signal active while we dismantle the release mechanism. That's impossible. Any attempt to touch this thing could trigger it. We need specialists. A voice echoed through the hall, amplified by the acoustics. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Marcus and Torres spun around. Constantine stood at the opposite entrance, 50 yards away, relaxed and confident. He was alone, his hands in his pockets, looking like a tourist who'd wandered in by mistake. But Marcus knew better. The man was a coiled spring. Major Webb, Constantine said, his accent thicker now, less refined. You're more resourceful than my employers gave you credit for, but you've made a critical mistake. Yeah, what's that? Marcus stood slowly, hands visible. You assumed I was bluffing, that this was a negotiation. Constantine pulled out a phone, held it up. This device is now armed. The signal I'm transmitting is the only thing keeping it dormant. If I hang up, if you shoot me, if anything happens to interrupt this signal, well, you've seen what Novichok does to human tissue. It's not a pleasant death. Torres's weapon was trained on Constantine, but her hand was steady. She knew the same thing Marcus did. Killing him wasn't an option. Not yet. So what do you want? Marcus asked, buying time, trying to read Constantine's body language for tells. I want to leave this city alive. I want the federal warrants dropped. I want safe passage out of the country. Constantine's smile was cold. In exchange, I'll deactivate the device and tell you where the activation codes are stored. Everyone lives. Simple transaction. Your word against 300 lives? Marcus shook his head. You're a professional. You know how this ends. There's no deal, no extraction. You're going to prison or you're going to die here. Constantine's expression didn't change. Then we all die here. Is that acceptable to you, Major? Can you live with 300 deaths on your conscience? Or does Kandahar already keep you awake at night? Marcus felt the words land like a punch. Constantine had done his homework, knew exactly where to dig the knife in. Kandahar wasn't your fault, Torres said quietly, her eyes never leaving Constantine. Bad intel, compromised chain of command. You saved 12 soldiers that day, and lost 3. Marcus's voice was hollow. I made a call based on faulty information and people died. So yeah, I think about it every day. Then don't make the same mistake twice. Constantine took a step forward. Let me walk out of here. Save these people. Be the hero for once instead of the man who counts bodies after. Marcus's hand moved to his pocket, closed around the letter opener he'd taken from Vance's office. Not much of a weapon, but it was all he had. His mind was working through angles, distances, timing. If he could get close enough, fast enough, maybe he could take Constantine down before the man could trigger the device. But it was a gamble, a terrible gamble. And then Marcus noticed something. Constantine's phone wasn't pointed at him. It was angled slightly to the left, toward the shadows near the entrance. Someone else was here. Someone Constantine was signaling. Torres, Marcus said softly. 3 o'clock by the exit sign. Torres's eyes flicked right. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Jackson Reeves, the fake orderly, holding his own phone. He wasn't looking at Constantine. He was looking at Captain Sarah Reeves's tactical operator with something like recognition. Hey, sis, Jackson said, his voice empty. Bet you didn't expect to see me here. Torres went rigid. Jackson? Surprise. Jackson's smile was broken, wrong. You thought I was overseas, thought I was still the good soldier. But you know what? The Army doesn't give a shit about good soldiers. They chew you up and spit you out and expect you to say thank you. What did they do to you? Torres's voice cracked. You were special forces. You had honors, commendations. I had PTSD and a dishonorable discharge after I reported my CO for war crimes. Jackson's face twisted. They buried the investigation, destroyed my career, and threw me away like garbage. So yeah, when Constantine's people approached me with an offer to get paid for skills the government no longer wanted, I took it. Constantine was watching the exchange with detached interest. Family reunions are always touching, but we're wasting time. Major Webb, what's it going to be? Do we have a deal or do we all die here? Marcus looked at Torres, saw the devastation in her eyes. Looked at Jackson, saw a broken man who'd lost his way. Looked at Constantine, saw a professional killer who'd orchestrated all of this with brutal efficiency. And then Marcus did something none of them expected. He laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was harsh and bitter, and filled with the exhaustion of a man who'd seen too much, lost too much, and stopped caring about the rules a long time ago. You know what the funny thing is? Marcus said, still laughing. You actually think you're in control here. You think that device is your ace in the hole. But you made the same mistake everyone makes when they research me. Constantine's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping in. What mistake? You read the official file, the sanitized version, the one that says I left the military due to psychological trauma after Kandahar. Marcus took a step forward. But you didn't read the classified annexes. The parts that explain what really happened that day. I don't see how... the intel was bad. The chain of command was compromised. 3 soldiers died. All true. Marcus took another step. But what the file doesn't mention is that I figured out the intel was bad 30 seconds before we breached. I saw the inconsistencies, the red flags, and I made a choice. I went in anyway because the alternative was letting a genuine threat escape. I gambled 3 lives against 12, and I'd make the same call today. Torres was staring at him now, reassessing. Constantine's hand tightened on his phone. So here's what's actually happening, Marcus continued, his voice cold and level. You're not walking out of here. Neither is Jackson. That device is not going to activate. And in about 90 seconds, Captain Reeves's actual tactical team is going to breach every entrance to this building simultaneously. Because while you were busy monologuing, I've been transmitting every word you've said directly to federal prosecutors. You're done, Constantine. This is over. You're bluffing. But Constantine's voice wavered. Am I? Marcus pulled out his phone, showed the screen, a voice recording app, actively transmitting. Every word, every confession, all admissible in court. Your employers are going to hang you out to dry rather than risk exposure. Constantine's face went pale. Then it went hard. If I'm finished, then so are you. His thumb moved toward the phone's screen. Torres fired 3 times, center mass, professional grouping. Constantine went down, his phone skittering across the floor. Jackson moved, pulling a weapon, but Marcus was faster. He closed the distance in 3 strides, drove the letter opener into Jackson's forearm. Jackson screamed, dropped the gun. Torres was on him in seconds, driving him to the ground, zip-tying his hands. Marcus ran to Constantine, kicked the phone away, checked for a pulse. Still alive, but barely. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and spreading. Marcus applied pressure to the wounds, his training overriding everything else. Stay with me, Marcus said. You don't get to die before you answer for this. Constantine's eyes were glazing. Doesn't matter. Already won. What does that mean? Marcus leaned closer. What else did you plan? But Constantine's eyes rolled back. His breathing stopped. Marcus started compressions, counting in his head, but he already knew it was too late. Torres appeared beside him with a med kit, helped him work, but after 2 minutes they both stopped. Constantine was gone. Marcus sat back, breathing hard. The convention center was suddenly flooded with light, tactical teams pouring in from every entrance, bomb squad specialists in heavy gear moving toward the chemical device, hazmat crews following close behind. Captain Sarah Reeves appeared, her face ashen. She looked at her brother, restrained on the floor, and something broke in her expression. But she kept it together, kept it professional. Get him out of here, she said to her team. Federal custody, full isolation. As they hauled Jackson to his feet, he looked at his sister. Sarah, I'm sorry. They got inside my head. They knew exactly what to say, exactly what buttons to push. Save it for your lawyer! Reeves's voice was ice, but Marcus could see her hands shaking. The bomb squad leader approached Marcus, pulled off his helmet. Dr. Webb, we need you to walk us through what you saw here. The device configuration, the nerve agent, everything. Marcus spent the next hour doing exactly that, answering questions, providing technical details, watching specialists in hazmat suits carefully dismantle Constantine's creation. The nerve agent was neutralized, the dispersal system disabled, the dead man switch deactivated. By the time the sun started rising over Ridgewood, the convention center was secure. Marcus stepped outside into the cold dawn air. His phone buzzed with a call from Dr. Vance. Webb, where the hell are you? Your shift starts in 30 minutes and we've got a full board. Marcus almost laughed again. After everything that had happened, the hospital still needed doctors. Life still went on. I'll be there in 20. Good. And Webb, thank you for last night, for... Vance's voice trailed off. I won't ask what you really are, but thank you. Marcus ended the call and stood in the parking lot watching the city wake up. Police cars blocked off the streets. News vans were already arriving, cameras deploying. By afternoon, this would be international headlines. Terror plot foiled at medical conference. Federal agents prevent mass casualty event. The stories would focus on Captain Reeves's leadership, on the brave tactical teams, on the bomb squad's expertise. Marcus's name wouldn't appear in any of the reports. That was how he wanted it. He was about to leave when Reeves found him one last time. She looked exhausted, broken, but also relieved. "My brother's talking," she said. "He gave up the whole network. Names, locations, funding sources. Constantine was just one piece. There are 6 more operatives in the country, all planning similar attacks. We're rolling them up now." "That's good, Marcus." She used his first name for the first time. "What you did in there, that was the stupidest, most reckless, most brilliant thing I've ever seen. You gambled everything on a bluff." "Wasn't entirely a bluff. The recording was real. But you had no idea if Constantine would break or if Jackson would hesitate. You just trusted your read of them." Reeves shook her head. "I couldn't have made that call." "Sure you could. You just wouldn't have wanted to." Marcus started toward his car. "There's a difference." He drove back to Mercy General as the city came alive around him. Traffic picked up. Coffee shops opened. People rushed to work, oblivious to how close they'd come to disaster. Marcus parked in the hospital lot, changed into fresh scrubs in his car, and walked through the ER entrance exactly 3 minutes before his shift started. Angela was at the nurse's station looking haggard. "Dr. Webb, please tell me you got some sleep." "A little. Another lie, but necessary." "What's on the board?" "Chest pain in Bay 2, possible MY. Abdominal pain in 4, probable appendicitis. And Dr. Vance wants to see you in his office after you stabilize the chest pain." Angela hesitated. "There are also some people here asking for you," said it's official business. Marcus looked toward the waiting area. 2 men in suits, federal agents, unmistakable. They saw him and stood, walking over with the kind of purposeful stride that meant Marcus wasn't going to like whatever came next. "Dr. Webb," the first agent said, showing credentials. "Special Agent Morrison, FBI, we need you to come with us. You're not under arrest, but we have some questions about your activities last night." "I'm in the middle of my shift. I have patients." "This isn't optional, doctor." Morrison's voice was polite but firm. "We can do this here or at the field office. Your choice." Marcus looked at Angela, at the full board, at the hospital bustling around them. Then he looked at the agents and saw something in their eyes. Not hostility exactly, but wariness. They didn't know what to make of him. He was a doctor who'd infiltrated a terror cell, who'd talked down a suicide bomber, who'd operated under fire. He didn't fit in their neat boxes. "Give me 10 minutes to stabilize the chest pain," Marcus said. "Then I'm all yours." Morrison nodded. 10 minutes. Marcus walked to Bay 2, his mind already shifting gears. The patient was a 60-year-old man, pale and sweating, clutching his chest. Classic presentation. Marcus ordered labs, EKG, started aspirin and nitro. The EKG showed ST elevation, definite MY. Marcus called cardiology, arranged for immediate cath lab transfer. "You're having a heart attack," Marcus told the patient, his voice calm and clear. "But we caught it early. The cardiologist is going to insert a stent, open the blockage. You're going to be okay." The patient grabbed Marcus's hand. "Thank you, doctor." Marcus squeezed back, then left as the cath lab team arrived. He walked toward the federal agents, toward whatever questions and consequences waited. But before he reached them, Dr. Vance intercepted him in the hallway. "Webb, wait." Vance pulled him aside, lowered his voice. "Those agents, they're going to ask you about your background, about what happened last night. They're going to want to know why a surgeon knows how to handle chemical weapons and negotiate with terrorists." "I'm aware. I've been making some calls to old colleagues, people with clearances." Vance met his eyes. "Your file is sealed, heavily classified, but I got enough pieces to understand you're not just a doctor. You're something else. Something dangerous." Marcus said nothing. "I don't care," Vance continued. "I don't care what you were or what you did. You saved my life. You saved this hospital. And as far as I'm concerned, you can stay here as long as you want. The probation is lifted. The contract is permanent. And if anyone tries to force you out, federal agents included, they'll have to go through me first." Marcus felt something unexpected. Gratitude, maybe, or just relief that someone finally understood. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just keep being the doctor this hospital needs." Vance paused. "But maybe try to avoid any more shootouts in the basement. The board is already asking uncomfortable questions." Marcus almost smiled. Then he walked toward the federal agents, ready for whatever came next. But as he approached, Morrison's phone rang. The agent answered, his expression changing as he listened. When he hung up, he looked at Marcus with something like grudging respect. "We've been told to stand down." Apparently, someone very high up the chain of command made it clear that your cooperation last night was voluntary and extraordinary, and that any further questioning would be inadvisable. Morrison's jaw tightened. "You've got friends in interesting places, Dr. Webb." "I wouldn't call them friends. Whatever they are, they're effective." Morrison handed Marcus a business card. "If you ever decide you want to come back in from the cold, give me a call. We could use someone like you." Marcus took the card, slipped it into his pocket, and watched the agents leave. Then he turned back to the ER, back to the patients, back to the work. He was halfway through suturing a laceration when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The colonel wants to see you. Tonight, 8 p.m. Address attached. Don't be late." Marcus stared at the message, his hand steady as he tied off another suture. He'd thought he was done with that life. Thought he'd walked away clean, but apparently the past wasn't finished with him yet. The day passed in its usual blur: trauma cases, routine procedures, the endless churn of human suffering and healing. By the time Marcus's shift ended at 7, he was exhausted. But he drove to the address in the text anyway, an office building downtown, and took the elevator to the 15th floor. The colonel was waiting in a conference room, alone. She stood when Marcus entered. "Major Webb? Or should I say Dr. Webb now?" She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to talk about your future." "I have a future. It's at Mercy General." "Is it?" The colonel pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Constantine wasn't working alone. The network he was part of has cells in 14 countries. They're planning coordinated strikes against medical infrastructure, hospitals, research facilities, pharmaceutical plants. They want to cripple the global health system, create chaos, destabilize governments. Marcus didn't touch the folder. "That's not my problem." "It is if you're the only person who understands how they operate. You've been inside their heads, Major. You think like them. You know their tactics." The colonel leaned forward. "We need you, not as a soldier, as a consultant. Keep your job at the hospital, keep your civilian life, but when we need your expertise, when lives are at stake, you help us." "And if I say no?" "Then we find someone else and hope they're as good as you, but they won't be, and people will die." The colonel's voice was quiet. "I'm not asking you to pick up a rifle again. I'm asking you to use your brain, your experience, to prevent what happened last night from happening somewhere else. That's all." Marcus looked at the folder, at the classified stamp on the cover. He thought about the patients at Mercy General, about the work that still needed doing. He thought about Kandahar, about the 3 soldiers he'd lost and the 12 he'd saved, about the impossible choices that came with wearing a uniform. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "That's all I'm asking." The colonel stood. "One more thing. Jackson Reeves, Captain Reeves's brother. He's cooperating fully. The information he's providing is saving lives. He made terrible choices, but he's trying to make it right." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Sarah Reeves thinks you hate her brother, thinks you see him as a traitor and nothing more." The colonel met his eyes. "But I've read your file, all of it, and I know you understand better than most that good people can do terrible things when they're broken. I thought you should know he's trying to put himself back together." After the colonel left, Marcus sat alone in the conference room for a long time, staring at the folder. Finally, he picked it up, walked out of the building, and drove home through Ridgewood's nighttime streets. His apartment was dark and empty. He set the folder on the coffee table, unopened, and lay down on the couch. Sleep came slowly, his mind churning through everything that had happened, everything that still waited. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from Angela. "News is saying there was a major terror plot stopped today. Was that related to everything at the hospital? Are you okay?" Marcus typed back, "I'm fine. See you tomorrow." He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow there would be more patients, more emergencies, more lives to save. Tomorrow the questions would continue, the investigations would deepen, the consequences would unfold. Tomorrow he'd have to decide whether to open that folder, whether to step back into the world he'd tried so hard to leave behind. But tonight, for just a few hours, he could rest. The dream came anyway, like it always did. Kandahar. The explosion. The screaming. But this time, when Marcus looked at the faces of the 3 soldiers who died, they weren't looking at him with accusation. They were looking at him with something else. Understanding, maybe. Or forgiveness. He woke at dawn to his phone ringing. Not the hospital this time. Captain Reeves. Marcus, we have a situation. One of the cells we've been tracking just went active. They're targeting a children's hospital in Baltimore. We need someone on the ground who understands medical facility security, who can think like both a doctor and a tactician. Her voice was urgent but controlled. I know what I'm asking. I know you want out. But there are 200 kids in that hospital, and we're running out of time. Marcus sat up, ran a hand through his hair. Outside his window, Ridgewood was waking up again. Another day, another chance. He thought about Dr. Vance's words. Keep being the doctor this hospital needs. He thought about the colonel's offer. Use your brain to prevent what happened from happening somewhere else. He thought about the patients he'd saved and the ones he'd lost and the impossible space between the two. Send me the details, Marcus said. I'm on my way. Marcus was on a plane to Baltimore within 2 hours. Captain Reeves had arranged a military transport. Small, fast, no questions asked. He sat alone in the cargo hold, the classified folder open on his lap, reading through intelligence reports that grew darker with each page. The cell targeting the children's hospital wasn't just planning an attack. They were planning a statement, something so horrific it would dominate news cycles for months, terrorize every parent in America, destabilize trust in medical institutions nationwide. The target was St. Catherine's Pediatric Hospital, a sprawling campus that treated over 15,000 children annually. Current patient census, 207, ranging from newborns in the NICU to teenagers undergoing cancer treatment. The cell had been surveilling the facility for 6 weeks. They knew the shift changes, the security protocols, the blind spots in camera coverage. And according to intercepted communications, they were planning to move within the next 12 hours. Marcus's phone buzzed, Reeves, voice only. You're landing in 40 minutes, she said. Local FBI has a tactical team ready, but they're waiting for your assessment before they move. The hospital administration doesn't know anything yet. We can't risk panic or evacuation tipping off the cell. What's the threat profile? Similar to Ridgewood, but worse. We think they're planning a hostage situation combined with a chemical release. Take the NICU, threaten to kill infants unless demands are met, then release nerve agent regardless of compliance. Maximum psychological damage. Marcus felt something cold and murderous settle in his chest. Who's running the cell? That's the problem. We don't know. Constantine's network is more compartmentalized than we thought. Jackson Reeves gave us the operational structure, but not the leadership. Whoever's running this is smart enough to stay invisible. The plane began its descent. Marcus closed the folder and stared out the small window at Baltimore's skyline emerging from early morning fog. Somewhere down there, someone was preparing to hurt children, and Marcus was going to stop them, no matter what it cost. The FBI field office was chaos when Marcus arrived. Agents running between desks, phones ringing constantly, tactical operators checking gear. A tall man in his 50s approached, extending a hand. Dr. Webb, Special Agent in Charge Douglas Brennan. Thank you for coming. Brennan gestured toward a conference room. We've got a situation developing faster than anticipated. Can you walk and talk? Marcus followed him through the office. What changed? 20 minutes ago, a van matching the description from our surveillance pulled into St. Catherine's service entrance. 4 occupants, all male, dressed as medical supply delivery personnel. They're inside now, location unknown. And you haven't moved on them because we don't know if they're the advance team or the main force. We don't know if the chemical agent is already inside or coming later. We move too soon. We might trigger exactly what we're trying to prevent. Brennan's jaw was tight. We need someone who can get inside without raising alarms, assess the situation, and give us actionable intelligence. That's you. They reached the conference room. Wall-mounted screens showed live feeds from street, Catherine's, exterior shots, parking lots, entrances. One screen displayed the hospital's floor plan, a complex maze of wings and departments spread across 6 buildings. Marcus studied the layout. What's your cover story for getting me inside? Visiting specialist. We've arranged a consultation with the head of pediatric oncology. Gives you access to most of the facility without questions. Brennan handed Marcus a hospital ID badge with his photo and a fake name. Doctor Michael Harrison, Johns Hopkins. You're reviewing a complex case, expected to spend several hours touring different departments. And if I run into the cell, you don't engage. You identify, locate, and report. Then we extract you and send in the tactical team. Brennan met his eyes. But Captain Reeves warned me you don't always follow orders, so I'll say this once. There are over 200 kids in that hospital. Whatever heroic impulse you have, suppress it. We do this by the book. Marcus took the badge. Understood. 30 minutes later, a black SUV dropped Marcus at St. Catherine's main entrance. The hospital was modern and bright. Walls painted with cheerful murals of cartoon animals, volunteers in colorful smocks directing visitors. It looked nothing like Mercy General's gritty ER. This was a place designed to make sick children feel safe. Marcus checked in at the main desk, was given visitor credentials, and escorted to the oncology wing by a friendly volunteer who talked non-stop about the hospital's cutting-edge research programs. Marcus barely heard her. His eyes were scanning everything: exits, security cameras, staff members, anyone who moved wrong or looked out of place. Dr. Patricia Romano, head of pediatric oncology, met him outside her office. She was 50s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. Doctor Harrison, thank you for coming on such short notice. She shook his hand firmly. The patient I wanted you to review is actually doing better than expected this morning, but since you're here, would you mind if I showed you our new treatment protocols? We've been getting remarkable results with... Actually, Marcus interrupted gently. Would you mind if I toured the facility first? I like to get a sense of the whole operation before diving into specific cases. Romano looked slightly put off, but nodded. Of course. I'll have one of our nurses show you around. The nurse was young, enthusiastic, clearly proud of the hospital. She walked Marcus through the oncology wing, the surgical suites, the diagnostic imaging center. Everything looked normal, too normal. Marcus's instincts were screaming that something was wrong, but he couldn't identify what. They were passing through a connecting hallway when Marcus saw him. One of the men from the surveillance photos, dressed in scrubs, pushing a supply cart. The man's posture was wrong, too rigid, and his eyes tracked Marcus with professional assessment before he caught himself and looked away. Marcus kept walking, didn't break stride, but spoke quietly into the phone in his pocket, activated to work as a hot mic. Hostile identified. Level 2, East Wing connecting corridor, pushing supply cart toward NICU. Repeat, headed toward NICU. The nurse was still talking, oblivious. Marcus interrupted her again. I'm sorry, I need to use the restroom. Where's the nearest one? Just around the corner, she pointed. Marcus excused himself and ducked into the men's room. He pulled out his phone, texted Brennan. They're moving on NICU now, 4 hostiles minimum. Unknown if chemical agent is in play. Need eyes on supply cart. Brennan's response came instantly. Tactical team is 10 minutes out. Hold position. Do not engage. Marcus stared at the text. 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, those men could take the NICU hostage, could barricade themselves with 30 newborns as human shields. By the time the tactical team breached, it would be too late. He thought about Kandahar, about the 3 soldiers who'd died because he'd made a hard choice, about the 12 who'd lived because he'd made that same choice. He put his phone away and walked out of the restroom. The NICU was on the 3rd floor, a secured wing requiring badge access. Marcus's fake credentials wouldn't work there, but he didn't need them. He took the stairs, moving fast but not running, and emerged on the 3rd floor just as the man with the supply cart was being buzzed through the NICU security door by an unsuspecting nurse. Marcus caught the door before it closed, slipped in behind. The nurse turned, surprised. Can I help you? Dr. Harrison, consulting from Hopkins. I was told to observe your NICU protocols. Marcus smiled, projecting confidence. Dr. Romano arranged it. The nurse looked uncertain, but nodded. Oh, okay, let me just check. An alarm went off. Not the fire alarm, something else. A code on the intercom. Code purple, NICU. Code purple, NICU. Internal security threat. The nurse's face went white. Marcus was already moving, pushing past her into the NICU proper. The unit was a large open space with isolettes arranged in rows, each containing a tiny newborn, tubes and wires connecting them to machines. 28 babies total, 8 staff members on duty, and 4 men in scrubs pulling weapons from the supply cart. One of the men saw Marcus and raised a pistol. "On the ground! Now!" Marcus dropped, hands visible. The NICU staff screamed. One nurse tried to run and was grabbed, thrown to the floor. Another man barred the security door, jamming it shut with a metal rod. They were practiced, efficient. This had been rehearsed. The leader of the group, the same man Marcus had seen in the hallway, pulled off his scrub cap, revealing a face Marcus recognized from the classified folder. Dmitry Volkov, former Russian intelligence wanted in 6 countries for terrorist activities. "Everyone shut up," Volkov shouted. His English was accented but clear. "You do exactly what I say. You live. You fight, you die. Simple." One of the staff members was crying. A baby started wailing, then another. Volkov ignored them, pulled out a phone, started filming. "This message is for the American government," he said to the camera. "You have invaded our lands, destroyed our people, imposed your will on sovereign nations. Today, you will know fear. Today, you will understand that your children are not safe, that no place is sacred, that we can reach you anywhere." Marcus was on the ground 10 feet away, his mind racing through scenarios. 4 hostiles, all armed, 28 infants, 8 staff members, plus Marcus. The tactical team was still at least 8 minutes away. The security door was barred. If Volkov had brought chemical agents, they could be deployed in seconds. Bad odds. Terrible odds. But not impossible odds. Marcus caught the eye of one of the nurses, a young woman with dark hair, terrified but holding it together. He mouthed one word, ventilation. She blinked, not understanding at first. Then her eyes widened. She gave the tiniest nod. Volkov was still recording his manifesto. "In 5 minutes, if our demands are not met, we will execute 1 infant every 60 seconds. And when we are done, we will release agents into this hospital's air system that will kill everyone on this floor. You cannot stop us. You cannot—" Marcus rolled to his feet and charged. He'd done the math in his head. Distance, reaction time, angle of approach. Volkov was focused on his phone, his weapon held low. Marcus covered the 10 feet in under 2 seconds, drove his shoulder into Volkov's midsection, carried him backward into an isolette. The plastic housing cracked. Volkov's gun went off, the shot wild, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The other 3 hostiles spun toward Marcus. He grabbed Volkov's gun hand, twisted, felt bones break. Volkov screamed. Marcus ripped the weapon free and fired twice. 1 hostile down, chest shots. The other 2 dove for cover behind isolettes. Marcus couldn't fire again. Too many babies in the line of fire. He threw himself behind a supply cabinet as bullets chewed through metal and plastic. One of the staff members was crawling toward the security door, trying to reach the release. A hostile spotted her, aimed. Marcus threw the gun, not at the hostile, at the overhead lights. The fixture exploded, plunging half the room into darkness. Marcus moved in the chaos, grabbed a rolling IV stand and threw it like a spear. It hit one of the hostiles in the face, sent him stumbling backward. Marcus was on him in seconds, drove an elbow into the man's throat, took his weapon, turned, and fired at the last hostile. The man went down. Volkov was back on his feet, bleeding from a head wound, holding something in his hand. A detonator. "Nobody moves!" Volkov's voice was ragged. "I press this, everyone dies." Marcus froze. The room went silent except for crying babies and the rasp of terrified breathing. Volkov's finger was on the trigger. Marcus could see it shaking. "Where's the agent?" Marcus asked quietly. "Ventilation system, already in place." Volkov smiled through bloody teeth. "Even if you kill me, my people will activate it remotely. You've lost, American." Marcus considered his options. Shoot Volkov. Risk him triggering the detonator. Try to talk him down. Risk him activating it anyway. Or the young nurse Marcus had made eye contact with earlier suddenly stood up from behind an isolette. She was holding a fire extinguisher. "Hey!" she shouted. Volkov turned. She sprayed him directly in the face with chemical foam. Volkov screamed, stumbled, his finger spasming on the detonator. Nothing happened. Marcus realized in that split second the detonator was a fake, a psychological weapon. Volkov had been bluffing. Marcus closed the distance. ripped the detonator from Volkov's hand, drove a knee into his solar plexus. Volkov went down gasping. Marcus zip-tied him with medical tubing, then grabbed the nearest phone and hit the emergency code. NICU secure. 4 hostiles down. 3 dead. 1 in custody. Need bomb squad immediately. Claim of chemical agent in ventilation. Unknown if credible. The tactical team breached 30 seconds later, weapons drawn, moving with practiced precision. They secured the hostiles, checked the staff and babies for injuries, started evacuating the unit. Marcus stepped back, let them work, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was crashing. The young nurse who'd sprayed Volkov approached him, still holding the fire extinguisher like a weapon. "Is it over?" she asked. "Yeah." Marcus's voice was rough. "You did good, really good. I didn't know what else to do. You looked at me and I understood." She set down the extinguisher. "Are you really a consultant from Hopkins?" Marcus almost smiled. "No, I'm just someone who's tired of bad people hurting kids." The bomb squad found the chemical agent 30 minutes later, 3 canisters of sarin gas rigged to the ventilation system on the floor below, set on a timer. They disarmed it with 4 minutes to spare. If Marcus hadn't stopped Volkov when he did, if the tactical team had followed protocol and waited for a negotiator, 200 children would have died. Special Agent Brennan found Marcus in the hospital parking lot 2 hours later, sitting on the curb, staring at nothing. "You disobeyed a direct order," Brennan said. "I did." "You engaged 4 armed hostiles with no backup, no tactical support, no plan." "That's accurate." Brennan sat down next to him. "The hospital administrator wants to give you a medal. The mayor wants to shake your hand. The governor wants you at a press conference." He paused. "But your name isn't going to appear in any reports. Captain Reeves made it clear you operate off the books. So instead, I'm going to say thank you. And I'm going to tell you that if you ever decide you want a job with the Bureau, you call me. We could use someone with your particular skill set." "I'm a doctor," Marcus said. "That's all I want to be." "Could have fooled me." Brennan stood up, handed Marcus a card. "The offer stands." Marcus flew back to Ridgewood that night, exhausted and empty. He arrived at Mercy General just as the morning shift was starting, slipped into the locker room, changed into scrubs. When he walked into the ER, Angela nearly dropped the chart she was holding. "Dr. Webb, we thought you'd called out sick. Nobody knew where you were." "Had some personal business to handle. I'm here now. What's on the board?" The shift was routine. A broken leg, a kidney stone, an asthma attack. Normal. Ordinary. The kind of medicine Marcus had thought he'd lost forever. Around noon, Dr. Vance appeared, pulled Marcus into his office. "The FBI called me this morning," Vance said without preamble. "Asked if you'd been at work yesterday. I told them you'd been here all day. Then they asked if I could confirm your whereabouts. And I told them doctor-patient confidentiality prevented me from discussing your schedule with anyone, including federal agents." Marcus met his eyes. "Why would you do that?" "Because whatever you're doing, whoever you really are, you saved this hospital. You saved my life. And I'm not going to let bureaucrats destroy you for being good at what you do." Vance leaned back in his chair. "But I want to know one thing. Are you planning to stay? Or is this just a stopover between whatever missions you're running?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about Baltimore, about the children who'd lived because he'd made an impossible choice. He thought about Kandahar, about the soldiers who'd died and the ones who'd survived. He thought about the folder on his coffee table, full of other threats, other operations, other lives hanging in the balance. "I'm staying," Marcus said finally. "This is where I belong, but sometimes I might need to leave for a day or two. And I need you to trust that when I do, it's for a good reason." Vance studied him for a long moment. "Done. But in exchange, I want you to teach. Our residents, our interns. They need to learn what you know. Not the tactical stuff, the medicine, the decision-making under pressure, the kind of skills that can't be taught in a textbook. I can do that." They shook hands. Marcus left the office feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not peace exactly, but purpose. A sense that maybe he'd found a way to balance the 2 lives he'd been living, the doctor and the soldier, the healer and the protector. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Marcus worked his shifts at Mercy General, trained residents in trauma protocols, and quietly consulted on 3 more federal operations through encrypted channels. The terror network Constantine had belonged to was systematically dismantled. Cells in Chicago, Phoenix, and Seattle all taken down in coordinated raids. Jackson Reeves's cooperation led to the arrest of 14 operatives and the seizure of enough chemical weapons to kill tens of thousands. Captain Sarah Reeves called Marcus one night in late November. "Jackson's sentencing hearing is tomorrow," she said. "He's pleading guilty to conspiracy and terrorism charges. The prosecution is recommending 20 years, but his cooperation might bring it down to 12. Her voice was strained. "I thought you should know." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he asked me to. He said you showed him something in that convention center, that even broken people can still make the right choice, that it's never too late to try to fix what you've broken." Reeves paused. "I think he wants you to know he's trying." Marcus thought about that, about redemption and consequences and the hard work of becoming someone better than who you'd been. "Tell him I hope he finds what he's looking for," Marcus said. The medical conference that had been targeted was rescheduled for January and went off without incident. Marcus attended, blending into the crowd of doctors and researchers, just another face in the audience. Dr. Vance gave a keynote speech about crisis management in healthcare settings. He didn't mention Marcus by name, but he talked about the importance of having people who could make hard decisions under pressure, who understood that medicine wasn't just science, but also courage. After the speech, reporters swarmed Vance, asking about the terror plot that had been foiled. Vance deflected, gave credit to federal agents and hospital security. But as he left the stage, he looked directly at Marcus in the crowd and nodded once. Marcus nodded back. In February, Luis Cordero was released from witness protection. He visited Marcus at the hospital, walking with a cane, his head still bandaged but healing. "I got a job," Luis said, grinning. "Security guard at a middle school. It's not much, but it's honest work. And the kids, man, they're good kids. They give me hope, you know?" "I'm glad," Marcus said. And he meant it. "I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you, so I wanted to say thank you, and I wanted you to know I'm not that person anymore. The guy who ran with gangs, who helped bad people. That's over." Marcus shook his hand. "We all get second chances. What we do with them is what matters." After Luis left, Marcus stood in the empty ER hallway for a moment, watching the controlled chaos around him. Nurses hurrying between rooms, residents consulting on charts, patients waiting for care. All of it normal. All of it essential. His phone buzzed. The colonel. "New situation developing. Need your assessment. Can you call?" Marcus looked at the message, then at the ER board full of patients needing treatment. He made a decision. He texted back. "On shift until 7 p.m. Call you after." The response came immediately. "Understood. You're doing good work, Major. Both kinds." Marcus put his phone away and grabbed the next chart. A kid with a broken arm from a bicycle accident. Marcus went to the bay, smiled at the terrified child, and got to work. That night, after his shift, Marcus drove to a park overlooking Ridgewood. He sat on a bench and called the colonel, spent 90 minutes discussing a situation in Miami that needed specialized medical knowledge to resolve. He provided his assessment, answered questions, and hung up knowing he'd probably just saved lives he'd never meet in a city he'd never visit. The next morning, he was back at Mercy General, suturing lacerations and saving different lives. 6 months after the Baltimore incident, the hospital held a staff recognition ceremony. Dr. Vance stood at a podium in the crowded cafeteria, giving out awards for excellence in patient care, research contributions, and community service. "And finally," Vance said, "I want to recognize someone who exemplifies what it means to be a physician. Someone who shows up every day, does the work without seeking recognition, and has repeatedly demonstrated extraordinary skill under the most difficult circumstances. Dr. Marcus Webb, would you come up here?" Marcus froze. Angela nudged him. "Go on, you earned it." He walked to the podium, uncomfortable with the attention. Vance shook his hand and held up a plaque. "Dr. Webb, in recognition of your dedication to Mercy General and your exemplary service to our community, we're proud to name you Physician of the Year. Thank you for everything you do." The cafeteria erupted in applause. Marcus took the plaque, stared at it, felt something unexpected well up in his chest. Recognition. Respect. Not for what he'd been in his previous life, but for who he was now. "Thank you," he managed to say. "This means more than you know." After the ceremony, staff members congratulated him, shook his hand, told him stories about patients he'd saved. Angela hugged him, tears in her eyes. "You never talk about yourself," she said. "Never brag, never seek credit, but everyone here knows you're special. We're lucky to have you." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just smiled and said, "I'm the lucky one." That night, he went home to his sparse apartment. The plaque sat on his coffee table next to the classified folder he still hadn't returned. 2 parts of his life side by side. He picked up the framed photo from the wall, the one of him in uniform with his team. He looked at the faces of the 3 soldiers who died in Kandahar, and for the first time, he didn't feel crushing guilt. He felt something else. Gratitude for the time they'd had. Acceptance that he'd made the best choice he could with bad information, and determination to honor their memory by continuing to make impossible choices when lives hung in the balance. He hung the photo back on the wall and opened his laptop. There was an email from the colonel. "Miami situation resolved successfully. 0 casualties. Your assessment was critical. Thank you." Marcus closed the laptop and lay down on the couch. Tomorrow, there would be more patients, more emergencies, more lives to save. Tomorrow, there might be another call from the colonel, another threat to assess, another impossible situation requiring his unique combination of skills. Tomorrow, he'd have to balance being Dr. Marcus Webb and being Major Marcus Webb, the healer and the protector, the man who saved lives in an ER and the man who saved them in darker, quieter ways. But tonight, he could rest. Tonight, he could close his eyes knowing he'd found a way to live with both versions of himself. That he wasn't just running from his past, but building something from it. That the 3 soldiers who died in Kandahar hadn't died for nothing, because their sacrifice had taught him how to make hard choices that saved dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of others. He thought about Dr. Vance's words at the recognition ceremony. "Thank you for everything you do. Not everything you've done. Not your past accomplishments. Your present actions. Your daily choice to show up and do the work." Marcus smiled in the darkness of his apartment. He'd spent 6 years trying to bury his past, trying to become someone else. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe the answer wasn't to choose between being a doctor and being a soldier. Maybe the answer was to be both. To use every skill, every experience, every hard lesson learned in blood and fire, and direct it toward one simple purpose: protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. He thought about Luis, trying to build a new life. About Jackson Reeves, serving time, but cooperating to dismantle the network he'd been part of. About the young nurse in Baltimore who'd grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed a terrorist in the face. About Angela and the staff at Mercy General who worked every day to hold back the tide of human suffering. Everyone was fighting their own battles. Everyone carried their own scars. But some people chose to let those scars make them stronger, to let the darkness they'd seen sharpen their resolve to bring light. Marcus made that choice every day, and he'd keep making it, one shift at a time, one patient at a time, one impossible decision at a time. Because in the end, that's what being a doctor meant. What being human meant. Showing up when things were hard, when the odds were bad, when giving up would be easier. Making the hard choice because it was right. Not because it was easy. Saving the lives you could and mourning the ones you couldn't, but never stopping, never giving up, never accepting that some battles weren't worth fighting. Marcus Webb had been many things. A soldier, a surgeon, a ghost, a hero. But tonight, lying on his couch in a sparse apartment in Ridgewood City, he was simply a man who'd found his purpose. A man who understood that strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about breaking and putting yourself back together, again and again, until you became something stronger than you'd ever been before. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.